All right, so hi everyone, welcome. I'm really happy to be here tonight. And thank you to Brenda and the IPV Intimate Partner Violent Task Force for having me here. I'm really happy and excited to talk to you all. My name is Caitlin. I am with the RISE Sexual Assault Services and Child Advocacy Center. I have been here since July. It was an interesting time to start an outreach position, but it's going fine. I really love it. And I am located in Portales. That's where our main office is, but we do provide services to 7 surrounding counties, including Quay. So that's why I'm talking to you all tonight. And then, and I know it can be really hard on an online platform to engage. So like Brenda said, if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the Facebook comment section, but also feel free to just, if you're on Zoom, to unmute yourself at any time. That's fine by me. I won't feel like you're interrupting me whatsoever. And then if you do leave a comment on Zoom, I will see it, but I may not see it till the very end. So I'm not trying to ignore you. I promise. I want to answer everybody's questions as best as I can tonight. All right, so what is tonight going to look like? I'm not going to be speaking for a whole lot. I know it's late in the evening and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I will be briefly going over who we are as an organization, what we do. And since we are a sexual assault service center, I will be talking a little bit about sexual assault during a pandemic, not too deep into that though. Briefly going over mandated reporting, and then we'll get into this fun stuff of safety planning. And we'll dive deep into that. So I shouldn't be talking longer than I'd say 25, 26 minutes, and then hopefully leave enough time for everybody to ask questions. So let's get started. All right, so who are we? We are a sexual assault service center and a child advocacy center. But we also provide medical exams for people who have been strangled as well, physically abused, and any sort of abuse of a child. We will provide medical exams free of charge to everyone. Like I said before, we provide services to 7 New Mexico counties. But if we get calls from Texas, we get calls from Albuquerque, from Roswell, and we're not gonna, just, tell them we can't help them. We're gonna make sure that we get them connected to the appropriate resources in their area. So we are gonna try to help as much as that we can in that situation. And then we are survivor centered, so we go through a training for that, and that just means, we're gonna be very, we're going to believe the survivor, we're going to support the survivor in however their journey looks, and just really not make them feel like it's their fault whatsoever. And then we are open all year round. Thank you to our volunteers. We are open 24/7, 365 days a year, and we do have a hotline that is open all day, every day. So we're really grateful for our volunteers. And then our resources. So when thinking of like how we keep ARISE going, I like to think of these 4 main components. And this is just really what keeps us going. And that's going to be advocacy, medical, counseling, and outreach. And I'm going to go over each of those. And if you can't see me and you see, like you hear a break, that's just me chugging water because I'm super dehydrated. Okay, so advocacy. So our advocacy team is made up of both volunteers and employees. I'm considered an advocate as well. And our volunteers are really, I know I already talked a lot about them, but they're some of the most like selfless people you'll ever meet. They're getting those calls at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, and then heading over to wherever. If it's Clovis, Lee County, Tucumcari, they're gonna be there. And really their job, our job as an advocate is just to support that survivor through their healing journey and however that may look, and just get them connected to resources, whether that's, a DVO, an order of protection, counseling, legal help, financial assistance. We'll help them fill out CVRC, which is an application that it's called Crime Victims Reparation. I want to say committee, but I can never remember the C. But it's so that we'll help them fill out this application, and then hopefully they'll get funding because we don't want them to have to pay for anything that happened because of the assault, because of the violence. So if someone lost a tooth, if their glasses were broken, if the assault happened in their home and they have to move out, we're going to apply for CVRC and hopefully get those glasses paid for, get the medicals billed paid for, and then also help with rent as well. We're going to help out as much as that we can. And then our medical team. And our medical team is made up of SANE nurses, and SANE stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner, and they provide head to toe exams. Those exams are going to be confidential. And as long, you know, with our advocates, our SANE nurses are going to be very survivor centered as well. So they're going to go at that survivor's pace for that exam. If the survivor just needs a break, needs to get some water, that's fine. If they need to stop altogether, that's fine too. We're not going to push them to do anything that they're not comfortable doing. They're in charge of their body and what happens to their body. And then they can also have an advocate in the room with them, a trusted, you know, if it's a parent, a partner, a friend, they can be in the exam room as well. And I mentioned that these exams are confidential. It will look a little different if you're a minor or if there's elder abuse happening. But if you're not ready to go to the police, we're not going to go to police. And if you're kind of on the fence about you know, going forward and telling, you know, filing, I've just lost my word. It's been a long day. Like filing a report, you know, that's okay. You don't have to make a decision at that exam because we can hold evidence for up to a year, which I just think is so incredible. And then we have our counseling team, and they're lovely as well. And what I mean by no expiration is that this event, this assault, this violence could have happened 50 or 60 years ago. It could have happened 20 years ago. It could have happened yesterday. If that survivor it's there, you know, they're ready to seek out counseling, we want to see them. We want to get them scheduled. They can email us, they can give us a call, and we're going to get them connected to the right counselor. And counseling is not only a free resource to survivors, but it's also a free resource to family, to friends, to the partner, and there's not going to be an expiration on that either, because secondary trauma is a real thing. And people who hear that story, who are there for that survivor on their healing journey, there's trauma that they're feeling too. And then we also provide individual and group counseling. And then we have outreach. And this is my job. And it's all about prevention, education. You're seeing it right now, what I do. Just making sure that folks know that Arise is available and the resources that we provide. But also, it's a great opportunity to hold spaces to have conversations about those awkward things, you know, such as healthy relationships, consent, bodily autonomy. We go into schools. I mean, we're doing it over Zoom right now, but I've talked to EMU, schools in Portales, and we have presentations available, all, you know, from kindergarten to college, as well as to businesses and churches as well. So that is my part on our resources. Are there questions so far? Okay, so I will continue. And if I need to slow down too, feel free to yell at me. My feelings will not get hurt. I am a fast talker, and it's something I am working on. All right, so the next
Caitlin, just so you know, we are, for some reason, it's still saying it's preparing and hasn't gone to Facebook Live yet.
Okay.
So, but I'm working on that.
Thank you, Brenda. And it's, I mean, you're recording, right?
Yes.
So this is something that like we could share too once we're done. Just share the link to watch.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so just a couple of slides about sexual assault and COVID. And COVID is kind of, you know, the same idea as sexual assault during the holidays. You know, you're stuck at home with family members, with roommates, whomever. And so during COVID, And during the holidays as well, rates of sexual assault increase. And minors and women are at a higher risk. And the same goes for domestic violence as well. And sexual assault is very well a part of domestic violence, right? It's like the stress, the fear, and really just like that sense of helplessness associated with emergencies like COVID tend to increase risk factors for perpetration of violence against women and violence against minors. And so according to RAINN, and RAINN is the National Sexual Assault Organization, and they have a hotline as well. There was a 22% increase in monthly calls to their hotline from people younger than 18. So they were seeing a lot of calls from minors. And half of all of those incoming contacts, actually, let me reverse. Of those young people who contacted the hotline in March, 67% identified their perpetrator as a family member, and 79% said they were currently living with that perpetrator. So it's tough, right? Like these kids who had, who were going to school before, they had eyes on them, whether that was from a teacher, a principal, a school counselor, friends. It looks a little different now, right? They don't have as big of a support system. That support system is kind of just, it's that the people who they're living with and then the people who they're seeing on Zoom. But Zoom, you don't have that as personal connection, right? And so it's tough. It's really hard. And so here's just some other statistics from RAINN. And 8 out of 10 rapes committed by someone they know the victim. So it's tough. It's really tough. And sexual assaults are usually acted out by someone we know, right? So now we're stuck in this household with the abuser. What are we going to do, right? How is Arise going to help out? So we're really trying to get creative with what we're doing, reaching out to the USPS, and mailmen, because now they're having that small time where they are, maybe at that person's house, like knocking on the door and dropping off a package or something like that. But if they can see that sign of abuse, they can let someone know. So we're just, COVID has made things different, but that's not stopping us from trying to make sure that these youth are getting the help that they deserve. And then just another little statistic that's very depressing, and I'm sorry to throw this at you during the holidays. So what you see is, so out of every 1,000 sexual assaults, 995 perpetrators will walk free. And we know that the statistics of people who are sexually assaulted is much higher, right? Because a lot of people don't come forward for a lot of reasons. And one of those reasons is that, there's a good chance that perpetrator will walk free, right? Even if they press charges. The survivor may feel like no one's going to believe them, or that they might be putting their lives at risk if they come forward. And it's really hard because we live in a very perpetrator-centered world, a very perpetrator-friendly world, rather than a survivor-centered world. So it's not geared towards survivors to make them want to come forward, right? And if they do decide to go through that justice system, it can take years for even someone to get prosecuted. And during that whole kind of timeline, they're having to relive through their trauma of having to retell their story. So there's a lot of kind of going against them for even wanting to come forward in the first place. And that's it with statistics. Any questions about that so far? Okay, so the next two slides are just going to be quickly about mandated reporting. So in New Mexico, is everyone considered a mandated reporter? And the answer is yes. So it's not just teachers, it's not just nurses, everyone in the state of New Mexico is considered a mandated reporter. And so I know a lot of people, they feel like they might, like, what if they call CYFD and there wasn't any abuse taking place? You're not going to get in trouble. As long as you have reasonable belief, you're going to be fine. And so If you think you see signs of abuse in an adult, you're going to call New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Services Department. And then if it's a minor, you're going to call Statewide Central Intake, or known as SCI. And what they're going to do is once they get all of the information from you, all of the details, they're either going to call CYFD or call law enforcement. And the report must be made immediately. We advise that you call by the end of the day, so that if that person is going to go back into that home where their perpetrator is, they don't have to go back there, right? So they're going to hopefully get into a safer environment. And it's great. You can choose to remain anonymous if you call. You won't get a case number to follow up on that case, but that's fine. Yeah, you don't have to tell them your name, which I think is kind of just a handy tool to have if you are nervous about calling. But we've had to call Sky a lot, and you get used to it, and it's not so scary. They can be really nice. So it's always good to call if you think something's happening. Okay, so now we're going to get into the fun stuff of safety planning. And I just want to I want to give a little disclaimer about talking about safety planning, because risk reduction in the sexual assault realm, in the domestic violence realm, it places responsibility on the victim, not on the perpetrator, right? And that's something that we never want to do, but it's also really important to have a plan in place, because it can help someone prepare for and help them respond to different scenarios. And ultimately, our main goal is to keep someone safe. So if a safety plan could do that, we're all for it. And it sucks that it's up to the survivors to make sure that they are protected rather than the abuser, but that's just unfortunately not the world we live in currently. So we just are working around it. So first and foremost, how to respond if someone discloses to you, whether, if a friend is telling you that they're being abused by their partner, what are you going to say? This can be really intimidating. It can make you feel really uncomfortable, because it's this person has just put their trust into you, right? What if you say the wrong thing and they don't feel like they can come to you again? But really, what you want to do if someone discloses is to make that person feel believed and heard. And so you're not going to want to ask if they tried to fight back, or if they tried to leave, or ever blame them for the abuse, because those are going to, make it seem like it's the survivor's fault, right, for the abuse, when it never is. And this one's a really hard one. Criticize the abuser. You never want to do that, because the abuser could be someone that they love, right? Maybe they have a child with that person and they still love them. And so if we're kind of, talking smack about the abuser, this might make the survivor feel like they can't come to us anymore, right? So we may have all these feelings towards that abuser, and all those feelings are very valid, but we just want to keep those to ourselves, right? And then it's important not to press for answers. And I know that's another hard one. You want to ask them all of the things, all of the details, but it's important that this survivor sets the pace of the discussion, and how much or how little they want to tell you. But do tell them how you believe them. Thank you so much for coming to me. I know it was not easy, and I just want to let you know I'm here to support you, and I am here for you. And then it's also important to take the abuse seriously. It takes a lot for someone to come forward. I'm sure almost everybody has put a lot of thought into how they're going to disclose to someone that they trust. So it's important that we take their story seriously every time. And then another one, keep calm. And so we have to go through advocate training when we work at Arise. And the number one rule is not to cry. And it's hard, because you're hearing a lot, you're working on these cases with some just really hard stories that you're hearing, and you can't cry. You have to keep calm. You can't get angry and raise your voice, because really what that's going to do, it's going to take the spotlight right away from the survivor and put the attention on us, on our story, on our crying. and it's gonna make the survivor feel like they have to consult us, right? Which can make for a very awkward situation. So we just wanna make sure we have a very calm and kind demeanor. And I get it, if you have to cry, that's okay, but it's just something important to think about, is just to try not to let that survivor see that. If it ever happens to us, I know it's a little different, but when we're working and we can start to feel our eyes burn a little bit, we just say, hey, I'm so sorry, I just have to make a quick call. And I know that might not be an appropriate response in your situation if you're talking to a friend or a family member, but it's something that we do. And then a good safety plan. We're going to talk about what a good safety plan looks like. And when I'm talking about a safety plan tonight, I'm talking about in a very kind of broad sense, because everybody's safety plan is going to be very individualistic, right, and very personalized to their needs. But I will be talking about a safety plan in regards to if the survivor is being abused by their partner in that same household. So, and our advocates at Arise, like, we are always more than happy to help someone create a safety plan, whether if like you're a friend and you're reaching out and you just want some help. We are happy to answer that call and help you out in any way we can. All right, so a good safety plan will include what the survivor wants for themselves and their children. And I feel like this is a really just good and important mantra to have. And that is, all survivors are the experts of their own situation, right? They're in the situation, they know what's best for them, even though we may feel like, we know better. All survivors are the experts of their own situation. We can't tell them what to do, and I know we want to, as advocates, as family members, as friends, but what we can do is support them in their situation and support them in their decisions, even if you don't agree with those decisions. Our job as advocates, our job as friends, is to hear the survivor, listen to their story as much or as little as they want to disclose, and then really understand their situation as best as you can, and then follow their lead while helping problem solve. So, if they're ready to leave that relationship, great. You follow their lead and then you work together to problem solve. But if they're not ready to leave that relationship, that's okay too. I know it's hard. You don't want to hear that, but if they're not ready, that's okay. We're still going to help them problem solve. And it's just important that we keep our morals at the door, right? Because again, all survivors are experts of their own situation. And then a good safety plan will also be tailored to the best options available at a point in time, while remaining flexible to change. And so statistically, leaving a violent relationship is the most dangerous time for the survivor. And so it's really important to have a backup plan, multiple backup plans, going over different scenarios with your friend. So let's say your friend, they're ready to leave, and you both have created this awesome safety plan, this great strategy how they're going to leave when the abuser is at work. And so they know the abuser leaves work every day at 4:30 and gets home around 5. And so this gal is going to try to get out of the house by like 3. Let's say abuser leaves work early and shows up while this survivor is trying to leave. What are we going to do? So making sure you just have those scenarios covered, because you never know what's going to happen. And like I stated before, a good safety plan will also be personalized to that survivor's needs and wants, but also to the resources available, right? Let's say you add a domestic violence shelter onto the safety plan, but where they're located, there isn't a domestic violence shelter there, or they're full. So making sure if you do have a shelter that you're calling beforehand, seeing what the steps are, seeing what paperwork they need. Or if there's not a shelter, like, is there a hotel they can stay at? Is there another safe? Can they stay at your place? Like, what is just having all the options available and making sure it's personalized to them. What if they have a dog, you know? What's gonna, you know, if they want to bring that dog with them out of that situation, where is that dog gonna go? Can that shelter take it? Can the hotel take it? Can the friend take it? So just kind of, excuse me, looking at all those scenarios. And I know this seems very overwhelming. So just starting kind of like step by step is important, and not to kind of just take this all in at once and try to just like, oh my God, how am I going to help them? Because it's manageable. We just need to, you know, take it slow, go step by step, and call us if you have questions. And so I know I have one more little bullet point, but I'm going to just skip it really fast and go over the difference between an impersonal plan and a personal safety plan. So, safety plan A, establish a code word or sign so that that trusted support knows when to call for help. Avoid rooms you can get easily trapped in, like a bathroom, or one that has accessible weapons, like a kitchen. Safety plan B, if you are scared and needing an intervention, text, "How was your vacation?" to a friend. This friend will then call the house to try to distract the abuser. If they don't pick up, that friend will anonymously request the police. And then that you will tell your partner you have to sort laundry, which will allow you to work in the laundry room, which you have figured out is going to be the safest room because it has multiple exits. So these are both safety plans, but I think you can tell right away which one is going to be more helpful, right? So the first safety plan lays the foundation perfectly, right? But it doesn't go any further than that. Like, what's the code word going to be? What room is going to be the safest for the person? You know, maybe they don't have a laundry room. Maybe the laundry room isn't safe. And maybe the bathroom in their situation is going to be the safest because it has a window big enough or 2 exits. So the second safety plan is what we're going to want to try to work towards, right? You're helping your friend pick that safe room, pick that, you know, the spaces that are not going to be safe to go and hide in. And you're really laying out the whole plan in details. You're building that foundation from that first safety plan. So you're not just telling your friend, okay, make sure you have a code word. Well, what is that code word going to be? What are you going to do if that friend texts you that code word? Like, just making sure you have every step in place. And I will go back. All right. So a good safety plan will also include strategies for staying and leaving the relationship. And I know that's hard. And certainly the goal is for them to leave, but that's not always the case, right? On average, it can take 7 times for someone to leave. So we want to make sure we have strategies for both situations to keep this person safe and their children and pets. So what we want to see in a safety plan, and these are just some of there's a lot of strategies that you can include in a safety plan, but these are ones that I've picked out that I think are very helpful. Like I've said, become familiar with a safe place, create that code word, prepare lots of excuses. Make sure, you know, as a friend, you know the excuses that they're going to be using, but you never just want to feel like you're put on the spot and then have to come up with an excuse on the spot. Just have them ready. And if an injury has occurred, please make sure that you get them to a doctor, not only for safety, but for documentation as well. If this does go to trial in the future, they will have pictures to build on that evidence, which is going to be extremely important. Keep computer safety in mind, right, at all times. If you're looking at domestic violence shelters in that area, on their computer or their, like that survivor's phone, make sure that you have cleared all that history. And then have a duffel bag ready, either at a trusted person's house. So if you're the friend, maybe you can have the duffel bag at your house, or maybe if they have a safe space, they can keep it at their house. That's fine too. Whatever you all are gonna, whatever the survivor is gonna feel comfortable with. I'm almost at 30 minutes. I'm so sorry, you all. So this is what I like to see in a bag, which I think is really helpful. So having that cash on hand, prescription medication, extra clothes for you and the children if you have children, maybe not IDs, but copies of IDs, and then toiletry products, a list of important phone numbers if you can't have your phone. You know, make sure to have like your social security card, insurance policies, birth certificates, And I think it's really great to include sentimental valuables, right, in photos. That's important. Don't leave that out. Whatever you can fit into this bag, please do. And if you're thinking of filling out a DVO, if your friend is thinking about filling out a DVO, make sure to have your the abuser's birthday, workplace, and phone number in case like you're filling out a DVO. Okay, we're almost there. So what if a child is involved? And creating a safety plan, it can be tricky if a child is involved, and it'll still look the same as far as like the steps go and the code words go and all of that. But it's important to know, that kids, they're in danger of being manipulated by the abuser, right? It's not as simple as working with a survivor who understands that situation. Maybe they're young and they just can't comprehend what's going on. If you tell that child something, maybe they share things with the abuser. And this is probably, the biggest one is mom is most likely, or dad has most likely done everything to keep this child safe, right? These children safe, and to shield them from the abuse. So hopefully keeping them away, like completely, like they have no idea what's going on. But children pick up on things, and odds are the child knows something is wrong. Children are very hyper aware. And so I think breaking the silence is going to be really important. So encouraging mom or dad to find the right words and to convey some sort of like age appropriate context to keep that child safe, so that the child is not just receiving information from the abuser, right? And they might, in having some sort of context, right, it might make them feel safer because they already have an idea of what's going on, but just getting something from mom or dad, like, okay, yes, this is happening, and we might be leaving soon. So if you do decide to leave, this child has an idea. And it totally depends on the age and how, mom knows, dad knows child best. So making sure that, it's the appropriate context for that child. All right, last slide. So safety planning is usually very just go, 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 right? It's just very crisis heavy, but it's important to think of your friend's emotional health as well, right? Because leaving an abusive relationship can feel extremely lonely. They are starting over, so make sure that they feel extremely supported throughout this process, so from here on out, the rest of their life. Make sure they have a list of support groups, counselors, 24/7 crisis lines, and then help them figure out, what brings them joy when they start to feel like panicky. They can call blank and blank for support, or if they feel like they're considering going back to the abusive relationship, they can call this person, or, I don't know, listen to this podcast. It's however it looks. I also like grounding techniques as well. It's really helpful if you're starting to feel very panicky or have an anxiety attack, to like list 5 things you can hear, 4 things you can see, 3 things you can taste, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can touch, or however you want to do that. But self-care and emotional well-being is going to be extremely important for them. Questions? And I will stop sharing so I can see the message.
So Caitlin, you mentioned the grounding exercise, but you went through all of that really quick. Could you maybe say them again slower?
Yes, I'm sorry. So, and this is however you want, like in what order you would like to do it, but I like to, so five things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing you can smell. And that really helps, like take away from that, like that dread or whatever they're feeling, and just help them concentrate on something else. It can be really helpful if they are just like, okay, I have to go now. I have to go back to the abuser right now. I have to call them. It can just be really helpful. And there's a question in the comment box, like what about a plan if they do not want to leave the home? And yeah, if they don't want to leave, we're still going to help them strategize to find, again, the safest place they can go if the abuse is about to happen, so where they're able to lock themselves in. to have people they can call, like having that code word if like the police or somebody needs to be called for their safety. So we're going to look at strategies like that. So we still want to keep them as safe as possible, even if it's still in that home of the abuser. Good question.